I honestly didn't think I was gonna need to talk about the weather again today because for the most part, it was a really nice day. The sky was full of blues. The sun was shining down. I was feeling the sun on my skin. I finally had a reason to actually wear the sunscreen that I had. It was just a really nice day. There was nothing wrong with the weather at all. It was the quintessential spring training day. And then I went to record this video, and even before I could feel it, I smelt it. I was like, this is like the rain smell. And so I was gonna do this outside, didn't want to jeopardize the laptop, didn't want to jeopardize the microphone. And this isn't to say it was raining super hard, but it was raining hard enough to where it would have just been very inconvenient. Whatever, I digress. We've got some Giants baseball to talk about. The main thing to come out of today that I want to get into is the fact that Jung Hoo Lee might not be the first Giant to step in that batter's box this year. Now, I think coming into spring training, it would have been a fair assumption to make that Jung Hoo Lee would have been the Giants' leadoff batter coming into this season, especially given that in the limited amount of games that he played last season, almost all of them were in that leadoff spot. I believe 30 of them were him batting first, and 5 of them were him batting third, and I think there was also one where he was batting seventh. So assuming that he's healthy, it would make a lot of sense for him naturally to slot back into that leadoff spot. But Bob Melvin said today that that might not necessarily be the case, that instead of Lee being the one to lead off, it could in fact be LaMonte Wade Jr. and have Lee instead hitting that 3-hole. And as far as a potential roster construction or lineup construction rather of that very first game of the season, it could go LaMonte Wade Jr. up top, Willy Adames second, Jung Hoo Lee third, Matt Chapman fourth, Elliot Ramos fifth. That's well within the realm of reason of what we could see in Cincinnati on March 27th. Now, from a lineup construction standpoint, it does make a fair amount of sense as to why you would want to hit LaMonte Wade Jr. leadoff, strictly because it's the question of how can you maximize Wade's specific skill set, which that being high on base percentage, not a lot of power, not a lot of speed. And we know that when it comes to getting on base, Wade is one of the best in the league at doing that. Over the last 2 seasons, he's ranked 4th in walk rate and 11th in on-base percentage, minimum 900 plate appearances. The idea then, in theory, is that if Wade is your best on-base percentage guy and Willy Adames is arguably your biggest power threat, that's an ideal situation where you're trying to set up Adames to potentially inflict damage, where if we're just thinking of a hypothetical scenario where Wade draws a leadoff walk, Adames hits a homer, and boom, it's a 2-0 game. It's very rarely going to play out that perfect, but that is an ideal scenario as far as generating runs. And then you can get into a scenario where Lee's in that 3 spot. He can be either a run producer for both Wade and Adames, or in turn set the table for Chapman and Ramos. You kind of see these multiple ways that this can potentially shake out. And there's no guarantee that Wade is going to be the Giants' opening day leadoff hitter. There's no guarantee that Lee's going to be the 3 hitter. What the Giants plan to do over the course of spring training is to have both Lee and Wade hit number 1 and number 3. So Lee's gonna hit first and third, Wade's gonna hit first and third. And they're kind of just gonna play around with it a little bit. They're gonna see how it works and see if that's the best way to optimize this specific lineup. And on the subject of Wade, something that Melvin mentioned in his availability today was that according to conversations that he had with Wade, Wade was saying that the legs feel great, that he was doing a lot of running this offseason, so much so that Wade approached Melvin on the subject of potentially playing some outfield. Now, given the current state of San Francisco's outfield with Lee in center, Elliot Ramos in left field, Mike Yastrzemski in right, and then the potential 4th outfielders being either Grant McCray, Luis Matos, or Marco Luciano, the Giants aren't necessarily in a position where they'd have to have Wade potentially play a lot of outfield, but this is more so a question of just having that versatility and the importance of having versatility between first base, outfield, being able to mix and match as needed, because you never know how a game might potentially unfold. One final thing of note is that Yusmeiro Petit was in camp today. He's one of several special instructors that the Giants invited to camp, many of whom are former teammates of Buster Posey. And Bob Melvin really waxed poetic about Petit, specifically from a mentorship standpoint. Petit spent a lot of time today talking with Camilo Duvall in particular, And one of the points that I believe Melvin mentioned is that Petit has, I believe the way he said it was that he sees pitching in a different way compared to most, and that if Petit wanted an opportunity to coach, it would be an opportunity for him to grab. Again, Petit is only one of several instructors who will be in camp with the Giants this season, and it'll be interesting to see how this crop of former players, and I believe former coaches as well, influences this current team, especially some of the younger guys who are in camp. That'll do it for today. I think it's expected to rain tomorrow. We'll see what happens.